Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I would like to read the virtual testimony policy. Virtual participation is welcome in this legislative process, and to ensure that the process runs smoothly as possible, virtual participants must sign up to speak 1/2 hour before the committee begins. Virtual participation is only possible on bills that will be heard in the full committee. Participants must be Virginians or recognized subject matter experts. All participants must state who they are, the jurisdiction they reside in, and whether they represent a group before they present their comments. A presenter on the virtual platform must have their camera on and be physically present in the physical space, and the chair will announce at the beginning of the public comment period how much time will be allotted to each speaker. I would also like to remind my colleagues and any witnesses who come before to address all comments through the chair and not cross-talk with one another. One announcement is that Senator Obenshain's bill, SB 617, has gone by for the day. And if patrons would indicate if they have a substitute or an amendment at the beginning of their presentation, that would help us go a lot more smoothly. Today we're going to start with Senator Eben with SB 687. If you'd like to come to the podium. Thank you.
There's an amendment in the nature of a substitute to be adopted that the council has.
Move the amendment, Madam Chair.
If clerk would read the amendment.
Madam Chair.
All in favor of the of passing the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. If you would now explain it.
Madam Chair, a few members of the committee, a few years ago, we enacted a law making a Class 1 misdemeanor to operate a motor vehicle in such a careless and distracted manner that the operation is the proximate cause of seriously bodily injury or death to a vulnerable road user. And vulnerable road users are pedestrians or cyclists. And what we found out since then is that, and the reason that law was passed was because people weren't getting punished for killing pedestrians in crosswalks, because the standard was you had to prove that it was reckless driving when you killed a pedestrian in a crosswalk. So Senator Surville had passed this legislation that careless or distracted operation of the vehicle was the cause of the death or the injury. But then after it was passed, the judges couldn't find a definition of careless or distracted. So what the substitute does, similarly to the Florida statute for careless driving and the Federal National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's definition of distracted driving, is it defines it by saying that careless or distracted manner means failing to operate a motor vehicle in a careful and prudent manner, having regard for the width, grade, curves, corners, traffic, and all other attendant circumstances so as not to endanger the life, limb, or property of a vulnerable road user, or operating a motor vehicle while engaged in another activity that diverts the driver's attention from driving, including talking or texting on a handheld mobile telephone or any other handheld wireless communication device, adjusting a radio navigation system or other equipment, or eating or drinking, or operating a motor vehicle in violation of any other provision of the chapter. So it's not saying that you can't do those things. It's saying if that distracts you to the point that you kill or injure someone in a crosswalk who's lawfully crossing the street, that you would be penalized with the Class 1 misdemeanor in here, which is doesn't require jail time but allows for jail time or a fine of up to $2,500. We have had many safety advocates, including Northern Virginia Families for Safe Streets, have told us that judges have asked for clarity or need clarity in this code section. And that's the summary of the bill. I do have one witness, a founding member of Northern Virginia Families for Safe Streets, if he could just briefly address the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Senator Eben. If you'd like to bring your witness forward, that'd be fine.
Okay. This is Mike Doyle.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. So my name is Mike Doyle. I'm the founding member of the Northern Virginia Families for Safe Streets. We're a pedestrian-focused organization, and we have about 1,500 members. This bill, I would call it to fix, it's mind the gap. Mind the gap between what is deemed to be reckless and the current law of, in essence, a failure to yield. So the Serville bill was not deemed to be proper. Senator Evans' bill will help, we believe, fix that gap. What the result is that I've had to go and talk to people who have lost their family members and explain to them that the law today, there's this big gap, and if you're not deemed to be reckless, well then they get $250 fines or whatever. Many of these people happen to be from different places. They don't understand our laws. So, and as being a survivor of a serious injury myself, I was very frustrated that the driver who crashed into me got nothing. So this bill will at least fill the opportunity, depending upon what the judge says, as to something of some level of deterrence. Right now, there's hardly a level of deterrence that has any consequences to it. So as I've said before in another meeting, if I were an evil person trying to knock somebody off, I just run them over and tell the judge I never saw them. And they'd probably get a failure to yield. Or they have to be deemed reckless, which is very, very hard to prove. So please consider this filling the gap type of a bill.
Thank you so much. Senator Evans, are there questions from members? Senator Rome?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, just ask the patron on this. So as I'm reading the substitute version of this, basically what the bill does is it just defines two different terms that are already in the code at this point. And there, would the patron be able to explain why this gap exists in lieu of, say, a distracted driving charge? We heard about Mr. Doyle mention the reckless driving part, but can you explain just basically fundamentally what the difference between a distracted driving charge is going to be on this versus a careless manner or a distracted manner charges?
Well, the definition is in the substitute, which I seem to have misplaced, but we're not changing the penalty. We're just saying this is what distracted or careless means. Is, if you're doing the things that were in the substitute I read to you, then you're careless or distracted. If it results in the injury of someone who's lawfully on the road or the crosswalk, so a vulnerable road user who's already defined as a pedestrian or a cyclist.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Diggs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Evans, what do you think?
If you would make sure that all of you are speaking through the chair, please. Address the chair.
Sorry, Madam Chair. May I ask the senator a question?
Senator Diggs.
Thank you. Senator, do you have any endorsement or input from law enforcement associations or the state police?
I asked the Commonwealth's Attorney
Senator
Alexandria to, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Speak to the chair, please.
Madam Chair, I would tell Senator Diggs that I did share this, the original draft with the Alexandria Commonwealth's Attorney, and he thought it would be helpful. But I don't have any law enforcement associations that I've shared this draft with.
Thank you very much. Senator Diggs, did that answer your question? Senator Sturdivant, I understand you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Senator Edmond for bringing this bill and trying to help his constituents. The concern I have, I guess, looking at this, is we have reckless driving on the books, which I believe is a Class 1 misdemeanor. This seems to be defining something, conduct that is less egregious than reckless driving, but also making it a Class 1 misdemeanor. And so I guess sort of one question is a parliamentary question, is this not going to courts because we're not increasing the penalty for this crime?
Senator Eben, do you have an
Yeah, I
answer
would
to that,
tell
or do we need to talk to
I
the
would tell
clerk?
Senator Sturtevant, we're not adding a new crime. What we're doing is we're just defining, it's already a Class 1 misdemeanor to operate a motor vehicle in a careless and distracted manner such that that it's the proximate cause of serious bodily injury in the case of hitting someone who's legally using the road, a vulnerable road user. So all we're doing is we're just saying this is what careless or distracted manner means. It means what the Florida statute for careless driving says, means what the Federal National Highway Safety Administration defines as distracted driving. And it just allows a tool for prosecutors or judges to be able to sentence someone to know what it is, because we've had, since the law passed, lots of incidents of people being either stricken and injured or stricken and dying in the crosswalk and only being able to be fined for perhaps failure to yield.
Thank you, Senator Eben. Senator Sturtevant? Yes.
And then, Madam Chair, just referring Senator Eben to line 18 of the bill, it's defining the careless or distracted manner of driving. In line 18 is adjusting a radio navigation system or, quote, other equipment. And so I've got a little bit of concern about the bill just because we have reckless driving on the books, and then I'm reading a substitute for the first time in the last 5 minutes, but it also, there's some vagary there of, adjusting other equipment would include turning on the windshield wipers or using a turn signal, lots of other things besides talking on a phone or adjusting a navigation system. And so I guess what the sort of genesis of my questions or the concern that I have is you have a new driver, 16, 17-year-old, and we're potentially putting them in a situation where they could be subject to a Class 1 misdemeanor, which is up to a year in jail for conduct that doesn't rise to the level of reckless driving. And so that's my concern, if the senator may be able to address my concerns.
Senator Eben.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would tell the senator that, that it's not a crime to adjust other equipment only if it's done in such a manner that the careless or distracted operation is the proximate cause of the serious bodily injury or the death. So if you want to turn on the windshield wipers, that shouldn't, I can't imagine why turning the windshield wiper on would be the cause of death. But if you want to get your multiple CDs and change them while you're driving 20 or 30 miles an hour and not pay attention to the surroundings, that's not a crime in and of itself. It would be a crime if someone dies in the crosswalk who's legally present in there.
Senator Eben, thank you. Senator Marsden, question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the patron.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It seems there's two different standards for reckless driving, as the senator from Colonial Heights has mentioned, and then for a lesser and lesser standard you can get with the distracted definition, but the penalties are the same in both. Would the Madam Chair, would the senator comment on whether it might be appropriate to create this distracted driving penalty at a Class 2 misdemeanor, because it is a lower standard than the reckless driving, to differentiate between the two, not just with language and definition, but also with penalty? Would that be of any value to this bill?
Senator Eben.
If it was the will of the committee, but I would just point out that we already made a public policy choice that it is a Class 1 misdemeanor if someone dies or is injured, a vulnerable road user, when they're legally present on the roadway. They're doing everything right. It's not about a bike that's on the wrong side of the road necessarily. It's about people who are where they're allowed to be legally, and that because of the and then they have to be either, I believe, counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, they have to be injured or killed for them to face this higher penalty. And what's happening without this definition is that people are getting maybe a $250 fine if the officer thinks they can fine them with failure to yield, but they're not if no one else is there to witness it, this has to be proven still, but they're not reckless is a higher standard to prove.
Senator Eben, thank you for describing that. My understanding is that we passed legislation previously that just as you have said, and that officers and in court, people were having a hard time actually holding the individuals accountable who caused someone's life to lose their life, right? So we're not changing the penalty of accidentally killing someone, but we are clarifying for everybody what careless and distracted driving is. So this is simply just clarifying a definition, and that is already in the code. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. It was not defined. And careless and distracted, maybe people thought they knew what it meant when we passed it, but without any definition, we're finding problems with getting people any penalties more serious than failure to yield.
Thank you. Question from Senator Williams-Graves.
Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I'd like to move to report.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator Aird.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to just ask again if it would be amenable to the patron that after this was completed here, if it did have a second look in courts, just to make sure we aren't passing something with any unintended consequences.
Senator
Yes.
Eben, would you be comfortable
yes, Madam
with that?
Chair. I've shared this with 4 members of the courts committee to get their input in the language, but if you'd like the whole committee to see it, that would be fine with me.
Senator Aird, thank you for that question. I do have a question from Senator Diggs. Senator Diggs?
Madam Chair, just to clarify that, unless it's inappropriate, and my goal would be to make a motion to amend this to a Class 2 misdemeanor, but if it can be done in some other manner, I would withdraw that.
Senator Diggs, thank you. We are not, this committee is not really in the purview of setting penalties. This is a definition clarification, and if the body would like to make, somebody on the body would like to make a motion to refer this to judiciary, the courts and justice, we can entertain that.
Madam Chair, I have a motion. Madam Chair, I move to report the bill as amended with substitute and re-refer to the Courts of Justice Committee.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Any discussion on that? Senator Aird, did you want to say anything else? Okay. Is there any discussion? All righty. Hearing none, I'll call the vote.
Your vote will be noted, sir. Ayes 13, noes 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The bill reports and is re-referred to Courts of Justice. Thank you. The next bill on our, Senator Craig would like to go next.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I have Senate Bill 73 before you. It's a photo monitoring system for traffic signal bill. This bill just simply will allow a locality to employ a retired sworn law enforcement officer to review these tapes. Right now, we currently use full-time officers, and so this would free up our full-time officers, put them back on the street where they belong, and then use the experienced retired law enforcement officers to perform this task. They will not be sworn. They will not have a badge. They will not carry a gun. They will simply be employees of the police department, but with all the experience needed to perform the task.
Thank you, Madam Senator Craig. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Aird? Thank you. Senator Craig, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So a retired law enforcement officer, is there a time frame from which he has retired that would perhaps be a limit that we would no longer want to allow this, or is there?
There's not a time frame in the bill. It just simply says that we can allow retired officers in good standing. Of course, they would be retired in good standing, and most of them would probably be the law enforcement officers that probably wrote some of these tickets before after they retired. So I guess that would have to be the will of the pleasure of the committee.
Thank you very much. Do you have any witnesses here with you?
I do, the city of Chesapeake.
Thank you.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Madam Chair, David Westcott on behalf of the City of Chesapeake. We appreciate Senator Craig bringing this bill forward for the City of Chesapeake. Certainly, with our city, this would help tremendously, since it will allow us to be able to have retired law enforcement officers to be able to review these photos and videos and stuff, versus having a person there in the office where they could be out on the street. So this really would help us tremendously. And our Chief of Police, Mark Selesky, is also here through Zoom or WebEx, whichever it is.
Thank you so much. If the chief would like to speak to the body.
Chief Mark, you may unmute and speak. Please make sure your camera's on.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead with your testimony. Please make sure your camera is on.
I'd like to reiterate what Senator Craig said. Basically, what this would do would allow localities to hire retired law enforcement officers, and in some cases, it would be the same law enforcement officer that was performing this function before they retired, and to review the videos and make sure a fractioning has actually occurred. Keeping in mind that we give citizens a link when they receive a notice of violation for them to go watch the video themselves to see if they believe they ran the red light, and oftentimes they'll see the video of themselves running the red light and choose not to contest the ticket. The judges as well review the same video for them to make the determination whether or not someone ran the light in the event that it's contested.
Chief Selesky, this is Senator Boysko. We have a policy that you need to have your camera on. I apologize.
I'm sorry, let me try and turn that on now. I'm not sure why it's not working.
Does anyone have a question for Chief Selesky? Any of the members?
Can you see me now?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Senator Rome.
Madam Chair, thank you. A question for the patron.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Senator Rome. Go
Thank you,
ahead.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, ask the patron line 21, where it says certification, where it says that the retired law enforcement officer had up-to-date certification. Do we have certification in terms of working on speed cameras, for example? Like, what we're trying to basically figure out is how long this person's been out of the job, more or less, to make sure that if they're going to be coming back in, that what they're up to date on in terms of being certified is the, being able to read, operate these sort of cameras in the first place. Can we get some clarification either from the patron or from someone who could speak with authority to that?
Senator Craig or
Yes, ma'am. I would answer to Senator Rome. I will let Mr. Westcott answer that.
Mr. Westcott.
Madam Chair, Senator Rome, yes, there is certification. Certainly, what we're getting at here with this bill is as soon as they retired, those certifications are pretty much up to date. I mean, it's really, I don't think they have to go back and forth, to my understanding, and as a former law enforcement officer, it's not something that they have to review every single year.
Follow-up question, Madam Chair.
Senator Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, would the witness, in that case, Mr. Westcott, be able to define that certification? Are you talking about certification for speed cameras in this case?
Absolutely.
Photo cameras,
what I would ask, is, Madam Chair, Senator Rome, I would ask the Chief of Police that, since that is something that, he deals with heavily. So if he still is through online.
He's kind of lost in the ether.
Senator Craig.
I just want to say that Chief Selesky even pointed out that when you do get these tickets, there is a video you can click, and I clicked it, and it showed what I did wrong after I argued with my husband that I did not run that red light. So anybody could operate these civilians, but we're just trying to take the full-time officers off this duty and put them on the street protecting us.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Anyone in opposition to the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Hearing none. Senator Marsden.
Madam Chair, move to report.
All righty.
Second.
Thank you. Will the clerk call the roll?
Ayes 14, noes 1.
I have a copy of it.
The bill reports. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Absolutely. Senator Jordan is on next. And
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon.
Which bill would you like to proceed with first?
How about we do SB 322 first?
All right, perfect. And we do have a line amendment on that. There was a slight miscommunication in drafting, and we have a fix for that.
All righty. Do I have a motion to approve the amendment? Second. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Please go ahead and explain your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just so you know what that amendment did, on line 28, 35 through 36, and line 39 through 40, there was not the intention to have maintenance because that is not the goal there. And so we changed that with the word designation, just so the committee is aware. And so I'll proceed. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill 322 would direct the Commonwealth Transportation Board to set a bonus point system that may be added for projects that are designated as primary evacuation routes. Once developed, they would apply the bonus point values to projects when applicable. I think we all know that having adequate transportation infrastructure to support the evacuation of Virginia residents and visitors when emergencies arise, especially with flooding and natural disasters, is always important. And it's critical to the health and safety of those within our Commonwealth's borders and those that are visiting us. While safety is one of the factors, and I have gotten this question quite a bit in smart scale, safety does not have the connotation in smart scale that many of us may think about. So safety is going to be something more like stoplights, turn lanes, guardrails, minor safety upgrades, not safety in the connotation of a larger scale effort or reinforcement. In that program, it also uses data such as damages and crashes with fatalities or injuries. That's how the term safety is used. This bill would not impact CTB's ability to assign different weights to the various factors. That is under the purview of each group within each highway construction district as currently authorized in the code. It simply just provides a mechanism to allow projects that are evacuation routes to have considered as we're considering how we also allocate our transportation dollars. And for those that are from Hampton Roads, I think we know all too well what that means to us. But this actually, there's a bonus here. It supports those that may have any nuclear power plants, military installations, federal installations, much like a large swath in Planning District 8, and other areas across the state that would also benefit from this enhancement. And the reason that this bill is really so impactful and important, not only does it help Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia, and areas around our nuclear power plants, the bigger issue here is this, is that there are so many roads that are leading into and out of, say, Hampton Roads, our egresses towards Richmond and the Northern Virginia area. There are secondary roads that sometimes will never get at the heart of what Smart Skill is intended to do. And so allowing this bonus point system will allow us to hopefully unlock and hopefully have additional consideration to be able to at least get a crack at $1, which a lot of areas have not in the past. So with that, I would love to take questions if you all have them. I have plenty of resources and data and a couple phone of friends, but if anyone would like to see the maps that also encompass what the Commonwealth considers evacuation routes, I have copies of those as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Senator Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I asked the patron about how this is going to end up affecting Plain District 8, Northern Virginia. So here's the situation, right? So off the top of my head, we have 4 evacuation routes that I know of, 2 on interstate highways and 2 primary non-interstate highways. So there's 395 and I-66, and then you've got Route 50 and you have Route 1, right? So let's say I have a project that's going up for smart scale repeatedly for safety funding for Route 28, which is none of those 4, right? I'm already having enough of an issue competing with major roadways as it is, trying to get the safety improvements that I need to not get people killed on this. Will the patron be able to explain how is the bill in this case going to affect those secondary roads or the non-evacuation routes' ability to compete if it's going to be up against interstate highways and, major roads coming directly out of Washington, D.C.?
There's two things. So,
Speak to the
Madam
chair, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, Senator Rome. So there's a couple things. So there's actually more evacuation routes than you would imagine. In Northern Virginia alone, I could read all of these, but that is the extensive list from about 17 different routes under traffic signal corridors to about 34 routes. And if you'd like me to name them or see the copy, I certainly can provide it. So I can let you borrow this, Madam Chair, if that would be okay.
Thank you, Senator Jordan. Senator Hashmi, question for the patron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just ask the patron to speak a little bit about why this might be necessary. Of course, this is important that we protect and safeguard our evacuation routes. Don't we already have an existing maintenance program? I think you discussed it briefly, but if you could elaborate a little bit further. In addition to that, we have the new federal Protect program, which is also designed to invest in projects like this on evacuation routes. And do we need to have another program that is addressing things that we have federally as well as statewide?
Madam Chair, Senator Hashmi. What I would say is this, is that I'm glad that there are programs. However, we've not seen a dime. Hampton Roads is the second lowest lying area in the United States outside of the area where Hurricane Katrina had their floods. And I would hope that the 1.7 million plus people and the ghost population of our military that live in Hampton Roads would be able to get out safely as it sits now. We have areas on a rainy day that flood out partial lanes between 10, 460, 58, which goes all the way to the Virginia Beach oceanfront and all the way out towards Petersburg, that are not viable evacuation routes, as it so states in previous reports. But that's not the only place. This isn't just about hurricanes. This is also about safety of around our military bases, and many of them have secondary roads that will never pop high enough on smart scale or will never be able to access federal funds because they're secondary.
Senator Jordan, I have a question for you. Is VDOT supporting this bill?
VDOT has not taken any position on my bill.
Is there anybody from VDOT here who might be able to speak to how this would affect smart scale or the funding formulas?
Madam Chair, Joanne Maxwell from VDOT. At this point, we don't know. All of the various factors that are in Smart Scale are based on a weighting program, and depending on the typology of the particular project or where it sits, the typology of the area, the factors are weighted differently. The factors like congestion, mitigation, environmental safety, et cetera. We don't know. Adding a bonus point system to Smart Scale would be new. And I think the senator has acknowledged that. So we don't know at this point what the impact would be. We don't know, what the points, the extent of the points would be. So at this point, we can't say.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Senator Rome.
Thank you. Question for Ms. Maxwell. Madam Chair, I would ask the witness here, if you were given time basically throughout the next year, would you be able to come back and give us some numbers, or is there a point certain in which we would actually be able to put some data together if we were to, say, act on this in 2025 as opposed to this year?
Madam Chair, that might be possible. I would need to know a little. We'd need to know a little more about the concept, but certainly, if we were asked to look at it, and directed by this body to do that, we would do that.
Thank you so much. Are there people in the audience who are here to support the bill?
May I, Madam Chair, before we take testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, Senator Rome, just for your edification, I actually carried a bill a couple years ago to do a report that VDOT did provide. I have copies of from 2021, and all it did was reiterate that we do have evacuation routes, not the viability of such. So, Madam Chair, Senator Rome, and also might hat tip to Senator Williams-Graves, if you are in the city of Norfolk and you are driving towards Old Dominion and you get to the underpass as you're heading towards the hospital and towards towards the downtown tunnel or the midtown tunnel, you will not be able to pass after a day or two of normal rain, not even a major disaster. And Madam Chair, to Senator Hashmi's question earlier, that it sounds wonderful if there was federal pull-down money, but with the largest Navy base in the world, Norfolk has still not seen pull-down funds to fix that underpass. And so I don't think the cavalry is coming, so I'm trying to find a fix here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If there are people in the audience who are in support of the bill, we're going to do 1 minute per person.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Mindy Carlin, speaking on behalf of the City of Suffolk. We thank Senator Jordan for bringing this bill forward. What we really are trying to get at is a way to, within our scoring and prioritization, to account for projects that are evacuation routes, which there's no kind of factor. But we wanted to do that in a way that didn't disrupt the rest of the smart scale system. So none of the weighting would change, none of the percentages, which are different in each construction district, would change. The best solution that we could bring forward was to request that the CTB develop this additional scoring system that then could be provided outside of that weighting and scoring process, so that at least that we can be thinking about how we're able to move people in those areas where we have evacuation routes. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Are there other members of the audience in support of the bill?
Madam Chair, there is no one online to speak in favor.
Thank you. Are there members of the audience who are in opposition to the bill? Please come forward.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
And please identify the organization that you represent if you happen to be one.
All right. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Trip Pollard with the Southern Environmental Law Center. Obviously, evacuation routes are tremendously important. We strongly support spending money to try to fix these routes. What we're troubled by is trying to alter and redo the outcomes of smart scale. This wouldn't change the factor weighting, but it would change the outcome. If you're giving points, you're going to get different results in terms of which projects are funded with smart scale. The PROTECT program does provide funding for projects such as this. It hasn't funded yet because it's just started. So I think that, and also secondary roads, there's the district grant program as well. So there are different pots of money. These are serious problems that need to be addressed. I think it would be a mistake, though, to be monkeying around with smart scale to try to get there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please introduce yourself and tell us who you're with.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Wyatt Gordon, Virginia Conservation Network. On behalf of our network, we are opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Blair St. Ledger Olson with Climate Cabinet Action, and we oppose the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there's one person online to speak. Dan Malauf, please unmute and make sure your camera's on.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I don't think I'm visible. I'm sorry about that. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dan Malauf with Arlington County Division of Transportation. We do appreciate the intent of this bill. We appreciate the patron removing maintenance from the bill.
Sir, thank you so much. Could you please turn your camera on? We have a new policy that requires you to put your camera on.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's on. It does not seem to be recording. I'm going to turn off my background. Hopefully that'll make a difference. I'm sorry, I don't know what the problem is.
Please go ahead with your testimony.
Okay, I do apologize for that hiccup. We appreciate the intent of the bill. We do still have concerns about its effect on Smart Scale's already comprehensive scoring system. In short, we have concerns that this would double count or actually effectively triple count factors that, while important, are already heavily weighted in the process. This would potentially be an issue with two phases of Smart Scale's process. First, in the scoring, Smart Scale scoring requires consideration of congestion mitigation, which is frequently in many parts of the state by far the heaviest weighted factor, and typically most strongly favors projects located along the major highway corridors that are also evacuation routes. Secondly, following the scoring, when the Commonwealth determines how to program Smart Scale money, awards are given to multiple categories, most importantly corridors of statewide.
We need to wrap it up, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. We need to wrap it up. Senator Rome, question.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would like to speak to the bill for a moment. Madam Chair, regardless of which side we're on, pro, against, wherever we're at, if you're opposing a senator's bill, you please make the time ahead of time to check in with that person and make sure, even if you haven't found them, whatever it is, that you've tracked them down and so that they know ahead of time that they've been briefed. No one likes surprise opposition. We are all agreed on that part. Larger point here, I see, because I'm particularly interested in what we heard from VDOT here. At the same time, the patron has brought forward legislation like this before, which means as someone who has spent years working on transportation issues that go over and over and over again, I'm really sympathetic to what she's doing. And I think, like I was trying to get at before, if we were to carry this to 25, have everyone get in the room, and then come back here with an affirmative answer and a decision that we are going to make definitively for 25, I think that's the most respectful thing to do, while at the same time, I would also like to add that when we are dealing with life and death safety, which is evacuation here, we cannot have an issue that is going to have to keep coming back year after year after year. And to that point, I actually applaud the patron for having the tenacity and for having the initiative to continue doing it. But at the same time, everyone needs to get in the room and get this thing solved in the next year so that she can come back and we can have something that's going to be before the body that everyone's going to be able to support.
Thank you. Madam Senator Rome, would anyone have a motion that they would like
Madam
to
Chair.
offer? You'd like to give statements? Go ahead.
We have a last word.
Yes.
I think I might know where this is going, but Madam Chair, just for the edification of the committee, so you're aware, I think before we leave here today, there's a couple of things that everyone at this dais might want to be aware of, is that when we think about evacuation routes, we think about disaster preparedness, when in all actuality, the evacuation route corridors and corridors of significance run through every last person's district that is sitting at this dais right now. So I would just like to leave the committee with that.
Thank you. Does anyone have a motion? Any substitute motions?
Substitute motion, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, would be to carry over to 2025 with an instruction to everyone to get in the room and get it solved.
Is there a second? All righty. Substitute motion. Will the clerk call the roll?
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you, Senator Jordan. I look forward to getting the letter and trying to work through this with you all. Thank you very much for bringing this forward. Your
Thank you,
next
Madam
bill is
323.
223.
Hopefully this will be a lot easier than the last. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I have a resolution, if anyone would like a copy of it, from the Greensville County Board of Supervisors. And they've made a request to have a fallen law enforcement officer, Percy Lee House III, a renaming of the overpass on I-95 and Otter Dam Road in Greensville County. Percy Lee House III was a native son of Greensville County and graduated from the Creator Criminal Justice Training Academy of Subpoena after graduation from the Greensville County Sheriff's Office, where he was promoted to deputy sheriff. He performed his duties with deliberation and thoroughness, and he was also an avid motorcyclist and a lover of music, and a dedicated and dutiful public servant. He received a posthumous Medal of Honor from the American Police Hall of Fame on April 3rd, 2014, and Greensville County is seeking to honor his life and his memory with an enduring symbol and regarding his service with this renaming. So with that, I would like to take any questions from the committee.
Are there questions from the committee at all? Certainly appreciate you bringing this forward. Is there anybody with you who would like to come up and speak? Seeing none. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, move to report.
Second.
Okay, if clerk would call the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Senator, thank you so much for bringing that forward. Appreciate it. It is reported. All righty, next on our list, we have Senator Pillion. Are you in the Senator Pillion here? Thank you. Senator Pillion, you've got SB 728. Would you like to tell us about it?
I'll be glad to, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 728 sets out a new charter for the Cumberland Airport Commission and repeals the current charter. which was created in 1958 and hasn't been amended since. The proposed charter outlines the organization of the commission and contains powers and duties typically granted to the authorities. This bill also removes the town of Lebanon and counties of Lee and Russell from the commission, as these localities did not express interest in remaining part of the commission. So this bill is intended to help support economic development in the region, and it comes at the request of the County Administrator of Wise County.
Thank you. And Senator Pillion, can you just clarify, this isn't a town charter, this is the airport charter, correct?
That's correct. That's why it's in this committee, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I had some questions about that. Are there questions for the patron? Anyone in the audience who is here in support of the bill? Anyone
If there's anyone
opposed?
online that would like to speak in favor or in opposition, please raise your hand.
I would be shocked.
Second.
All righty. If the clerk would call the roll, please. I think we've got a good bill here.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All righty, that reports 15 to 0. Thank you for
Madam
your.
Chair.
Thank you for your.
Bill. You see that.
Thank you for your good bill. Senator Williams Grave is here, ready to present her bill. Tell us about your bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Senate Bill 516, and there is an amendment.
Do I have a motion on the amendment? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Please tell us about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 516 authorizes the governing body of any city to provide by ordinance for the lawful seizure, impounding, and disposition of an illegally operated all-terrain vehicle or off-road motorcycle operated on a highway or sidewalk within the city. Virginia Code 46.2-916 allows local governments to pass ordinances to provide for the lawful seizure, impounding, and disposition of unlicensed or unregistered motorcycles operated either on the highway or on private property without the consent of the private property owner. This bill proposes to amend that code to allow local governments the same authority when it comes to seize, impound, and dispose of unlawfully operated all-terrain vehicles and off-road motorcycles. The bill will help local governments address and deter the increase in unlawful and reckless driving of ATVs that endanger riders and passersby and have largely evaded law enforcement. It is worth noting that ATVs are not motorcycles and motorcycles are not ATVs. The City of Norfolk and other localities are in the process of passing ordinances to allow for the seizure and ultimately the destruction of unlicensed or unregistered motorcycles, but motorcycles are not ATVs under the Virginia Code. Hence the need for this bill. If you live anywhere and you've seen folks on city streets driving, disregarding the law, doing wheelies and cartwheels and all other kind of nonsense with these ATVs, it is an obstruction, it is dangerous, and somebody has already lost their life. Citizens across the Commonwealth would benefit from safer roads and the peaceful and quiet enjoyment of their neighborhoods and roads. Law enforcement officers and local governments will have one more tool in their toolbox to stop and deter dangerous and the potential lethal abuse of our roads, sidewalks, and public ways. Madam Chair, I do have expert witnesses here to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you so much. I have a queue of questions. Senator Sturdivant has a question before we bring up anybody
Thank you, Madam
else.
Chair. And I'd ask Senator, with the amendment that we just adopted, it now includes not just cities in the Commonwealth, but also counties who will be allowed to impound the ATVs.
That is correct, and that is still by ordinance. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, that is correct, and it is by ordinance.
Follow-up question. And there's not, Madam Chair, there's not a limitation on the population size of the localities that would be able to have this ordinance?
Senator Williams-Graves.
Madam Chair, Senator Sturtevant, no, there is no population size. We have cities that have as few as maybe 50,000 residents or more than 400,000 residents, and those cities, counties, and towns all have experienced this issue.
Thank you. Senator Sturtevant, was that your list? You good? Senator Suderline. Question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the senator a question too.
Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that amendment was problematic for me that added counties. I represent Roanoke City. We've got great historic Williamson Road that very urban setting. It's entirely inappropriate for the ATVs to be going up and down Williamson Road when they are, and I'd be happy to give this authority to my Roanoke City Council, which I'm usually not for giving them more authority, but I'd like to give them this authority to help correct that on Williamson or anywhere else. But then by adding the counties, I really don't want to see this going into effect in Shawsville, in rural Montgomery County. Really don't want to see it in my former district in Floyd, places like that. I think that adding the counties without a population bracket is problematic. So my question is, does it really need to be the entire Commonwealth, or could we go back to just the cities? And if you want to add some of the more urban counties, perhaps put a population bracket for counties above 200,000.
Senator Williams-Graves.
Madam Chair, I would submit that we were requested to add counties, and there are counties of all sizes that would benefit from this legislation. It is permissive. It is not mandated. So the counties who would choose to enact the legislation would be able to do so, and those who chose, based on their population size or the ruralness, if that's a word, of their area, could opt out.
Thank you, Senator Williams.
Madam Chair, just briefly.
Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the senator's answer. So wherever we end up on how expansive it is where my vote will be. I like what you're trying to do to help places like your city and the large cities that both you and I represent. I fear what might happen in some of our smaller counties. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator McGuire. Question for the patron?
Yes, Madam Chair, question for the patron. I think Senator Suderline covered a lot of my concerns. In Senate District 10, we have a lot of rural areas, and the farmers, we use four-wheelers quite a bit. And so I'm concerned that this might be a concern in the rural areas. And if we're in the cities of Virginia, I've heard that they are riding wheelies, like you said, on city streets and things like that, and we have to deter that, and we have to stop that. But I think my vote would be concerned in the rural areas where farmers, every part of my district, are driving these four-wheelers to and from one farm to another farm and things like that.
Senator Williams-Graves.
Madam Chair, the other thing to account for is that we're talking about an unlawfully operated all-terrain vehicle or off-road motorcycle. So my guess, never having been in a farmland town, is that the ones that are being operated on the farm are being operated lawfully and that they are registered.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Williams-Graves. I think that was well said. Senator Hackworth.
I can assure question. Well, to speak to that, Madam Chair, I can assure you that all of them are not lawfully operating. I think that is one thing that is concerning to me, is because I represent all of my area is rural, and some of them may go to the mailbox to collect mail. It's several things. Are they lawful? Probably not. But I think that doing this could give the authority for a maybe governing body to go against the will of some of the more rural counties. I would be very amenable to going back to just let it be to cities and not including counties, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hackworth. I see that Senator Bagby has a question or a comment.
Madam Chair, I would wait for her, the patron's response to Senator Hackworth.
Madam Chair, I don't have a response to that.
Madam Chair?
Senator
Either you
Bagby.
want cities and counties or you don't want cities and counties.
Well,
Senator
Madam
Williams
Chair,
Graves.
there are witnesses here to testify in favor and against, and so I would say let's hear the witness testimony and those who are in support and in opposition, and then we can make a determination as to whether or not we're going to accept an amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Williams Graves. Would anyone who is in support of the bill come before and introduce yourself along with any organization? And we'll have 1 minute. We'll do 3 minutes total per side.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead.
thank you very much. My name is Ramin Fatahi. I'm the Commonwealth's Attorney for the City of Norfolk. I am here in support of Senator Williams Graves' bill. I think that based on the informed and thoughtful questions from the panel, everybody is aware of why this bill is coming. It is, I would reiterate, a permissive bill. It does not require a locality to do anything. It simply gives a locality the option, should somebody operate one of these all-terrain vehicles or motorcycles, off-road motorcycles, illegally, to seize it. I would point out that it's really the closing of a loophole. The bill addresses 46.2-915.1, if I've got my number right. 46.2-916, the very next code section, already provides all localities, cities and counties, regardless of size, the ability to enact an ordinance that to seize motorcycles operated illegally on their roads. So this is simply acknowledging that under the code, motorcycles and ATVs are different vehicles. Senator Hackworth, you're absolutely right that if somebody's operating one of these ATVs in Burke's Garden or in Ceres, that's very different than it is in the middle of Norfolk. However, for example, the city of Petersburg has 33,000 people. Fairfax County has 1.1 million people. Having spent a great deal of time in Bland County, where my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law live, and where my wife grew up, I have a feeling that if anybody on the Bland County Board of Supervisors tried to enact this ordinance, they'd probably all be removed. I think that there is simply not the will for it in various places. So all it does is give the option.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left for everybody to speak who is supporting the bill.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Brandy Law. I'm a senior deputy city attorney for the city of Hampton. I'd like to thank Senator Williams Graves for bringing this bill and just say that the city of Hampton is in support.
Thank you so much. We have 51 seconds.
I will make it. Madam Chair, members of the committee, James Hutzer, Virginia Association of Counties. I would like to thank the senator for offering our amendment and possibly extending this authority to the counties. We have heard from member counties that this would be a deterrent for these illegally operated vehicles within the county limits. And as already been mentioned, it is permissive. So
thank you so much.
We support it.
And our final speaker.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sarah Taylor, City of Alexandria. This is something we've experienced in our city. It is dangerous. We appreciate that it's being done by ordinance, which requires us to have a community conversation about it before implementing the ordinance. So appreciate your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there members of the audience online who wish to speak?
Madam Chair, there's no one online to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition of this bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Okay, hearing none. If there is Senator Bagby.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator.
I would ask, Madam Chair, is it appropriate to ask if there's any counties here that wish to speak in support of the bill. I see the association, but, I haven't heard from my county on this. I've heard from my city, but I haven't heard from my county. Do you know or if the association can tell us about some counties that you've been in that they've been in communication with?
Senator Bagby, thank you. Is there anyone from VACO here to speak for the bill?
Oh, yes.
VACO would be a good one, right?
Yeah. Hi, again, James Hutzer, Virginia Association of Counties. Madam Chair, Delegate Bagby, Senator Bagby, I apologize. I would say that I've heard from various member counties. The one specifically who has requested that we add counties to this would be Floyd County. I have, again, it would be. It would be permissive again, and I have heard from various member counties, from ranging in size.
Thank you for the response. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair.
Senator Bagby.
Madam Chair, I would ask the patron if she would be willing to make this bill just for cities.
Senator Williams Graves, your bill is before us.
Madam Chair, what we had discussed in terms of a possible compromise is to keep the counties but have a population of more than 50,000 for the counties.
We need to get over 100,000.
Senator Suderline, did you have a question or a comment that you needed to make? I think Senator Bagby still has the floor, though.
Madam Chair.
You're fine.
Just speaking briefly, 50,000 still includes Franklin County, which I can't do that. And also Shawsville is in Montgomery County, which is about to eclipse 100. So I think if we took it to around 200, you're able to get your Fairfax, your Loudoun. Where's Chesterfield at now?
Senator
Chesterfield.
Senator Suderline. Senator Sturdivant had is next in line, and then I think we need to wrap this up. Senator Suderline, there's a lot of S names here on this dais. Senator Sturdivant, did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
Just to speak to the bill, if I may. Absolutely. Thank you. So I have a county and I have a city, and my city is a smaller city, but it is made up of, it's got a lot of folks who hunt. And so what I worry about with this bill, while I understand the intention and what it's getting after, what I worry about is somebody gets home from hunting and they are unloading the ATV from their truck, and to turn it around to take it into the garage or whatever, it's on a sidewalk because Colonial Heights is full of sidewalks, or it's out in the street, and you get an overzealous person in local government who's going to be impounding ATVs. So completely understand and appreciate what you're getting after. I just worry about the unintended consequences of this for both counties and cities.
Thank you very much. Senator McGuire, followed by Senator Mulcahy.
So, Madam Chair, I would say in the rural areas, sometimes people will go from hunting across the street and take it to a restaurant, and like Senator Hackworth said, they're not always registered. And I think I would agree with my friend, Senator Bagby, that if we could eliminate counties, I would fully support this bill.
Senator Mulcahy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a comment for the patron. I feel very sad that you haven't been on a farm and possibly ridden an ATV, so I want to invite you out to my farm and take you on an ATV ride.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have a motion on the? Senator Diggs, excuse me. There's a lot of comments here.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir. Senator Diggs.
And I came in late to this, so I hope I'm not being redundant. My biggest concern, I appreciate the intent, and I understand it is a problem. My biggest concern about this is the seizure and selling of someone's property. I see nothing about property that may be jointly owned. And I'm also concerned that there's things you can do in a motor vehicle that does not warrant the seizure of a vehicle. For example, I don't believe, and that somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, even if you evade and elude the police, that doesn't warrant the seizure of your vehicle and the selling of it. So the seizure of property is my biggest concern over here. I think certainly a substantial fine would be enough of a deterrent, and then to restate property that's owned jointly. Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chairman.
you, Senator Diggs. Any further questions, or do I have a motion?
Madam Chair.
Senator Williams Graves. You
Thank
get the final
Madam
word.
Chair. At the expense of the request from the counties, but to protect my city who's asked me to bring this, I am willing to withdraw the amendment for adding counties and leave it just at cities, so that we can get done what we need to get done, and the counties can come back and petition you all next year.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Move to adopt the amendment.
We don't wish to adopt an amendment.
Do I need to
We
reject
don't.
the amendment, Madam Chair? Do I need
Could
to-
we have the clerk clarify what the actual motion should be in this posture, so that we all know what we're saying?
Madam
what we're
Chair, you
voting.
can have the committee reconsider the vote by which you amended the bill.
Do we have a motion to reconsider the vote,
So
which we
moved. Second.
accepted the amendment? And second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All righty, so we have the original bill in front of us now. Do we have a motion to pass the bill as it was
Move to
originally?
report.
Second, all in favor, please, clerk, please call the roll.
And Madam Chair, I have Senator Pekarsky's proxy, and that would be a yes. Thank you.
Her vote will be noted. Ayes 10, noes 5.
Thank you very much. The bill reports 10 to 5. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Yes. So next, if Senator Bagby would like to present his bill, SB 534. Senator Bagby, would you like to tell us about your bill? And do you have a substitute?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a
You said
motion?
534?
Uh-huh. Do we have a motion to accept the substitute? Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Please tell us about your bill in its substitute form.
Hold on one moment, I'm sorry. I was all ready for 535. I don't know why I would do that.
Senator 534.
Madam Chair, 534 is a bill proposed to make changes to clarify the procedures for manufacturer approval of dealership purchases. And I am not able to find. Okay. It changes the deadline for a vehicle manufacturer, factory branch, distributor, or distributor branch to reject the sale or transfer of a dealership from 30 days to the effective date of the sale or transfer to 60 days. There's a number of individuals, I think, that will be speaking on this piece of legislation. We had a lot of friction, as you know, early on in session, but I think we worked most of that out, and so I would want them just to come up and then we'll talk more.
Thank you, Senator Bagby. Would people who are here in support of it, and I do know that there was a very robust discussion throughout the session so far on this, and we will limit it to 3 minutes total for and against.
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Ralston King with Virginia Auto Dealers Association. There is a substitute that
I would encourage you all to adopt, and we also have a line amendment as well. You all good with the substitute? I'll just highlight there's 3 components here that we tried to tackle within this legislation for buy-sell of dealerships. The first is the predictability piece, the 60-day time frame. We worked with the manufacturers on that, and we have a good position there for both of us on how we move forward on that 60-day time frame. The second piece is related to objectivity. We have also come to a consensus on that as well. The third piece is accountability. We did strike the accountability piece in this legislation. We want to make sure that you all understand that we're committed for the future. If we come back and we continue to see certain violations or willful violations of the statute, we will be back to talk about accountability in the future. In the spirit of compromise and the leaders in the industry, removing that accountability was very critical. And so we ask that you all endorse the bill. We do have a line amendment that would strike including lost profits on line 187.
Is there a motion to accept that amendment? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
We do
motion is
have
adopted.
Greg Habib, who's an attorney and has litigated these cases before. We wanted him to just share some evidence from his situations.
Thank you so much.
Madam
Mr.
Chairman,
Habib.
members of the committee, thank you. I'll try to be really brief. I do work with the VADA, but I also represent a lot of auto dealers in buy sales and litigation. I want you to know that this is a real problem we need to fix by way of a couple of examples. The current law anticipates that buy sales will be approved by the manufacturers within 90 days. We've seen them go month after month after month after month, frequently because the manufacturers will request additional information. I'll assume it's information they need in good faith, but that drags this process out. So what you're doing is bringing predictability by having that open-ended window we're currently dealing with and guaranteeing it's going to happen within 60 days. The other thing we've seen is because the word qualifications is in the existing code, that's a very subjective term. We had a case this year where a dealer who'd been in business for 70 years with almost 60 dealerships, one of the biggest dealerships on the East Coast, was rejected for not being qualified to have a dealership in Virginia. That's clearly not what Virginia meant when we put the word qualifications in the code. And so by removing qualifications, putting in years of experience, we think it's a reasonable balance between the interests of the manufacturers and the dealers. We do think that accountability piece is important. There's been a compromise to remove that. Dealers' only remedy is to go to court, but dealers are afraid to sue manufacturers because of the ramifications for that. But in the spirit of compromise, the auto dealers have agreed to remove that accountability provision. We hope we don't have to come back in a future session to address that, but we appreciate all the work and especially the chairman and the patron in getting us here. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you so much. And I know that there are, we will entertain very, very brief remarks. If you would tell us who you're with.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Michelle Satterlin with Volkswagen Group of America. Volkswagen Group is proud to be in the district of the chair in Reston. I'm not standing here to comment in support or opposing the bill, but rather just to say thank you. I know the issue is always very controversial, and we thank the chair and we thank Senator Begbie very much for pushing the parties together, and we are where we are, and just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Fred Helm on behalf of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. Also just want to thank you for convening the parties. These are complex transactions. There are a lot of different factors that go on. I do want to say that it's a partnership. The manufacturers work very closely with our dealers. We're happy when they do well, we do well. So we're all on the same page. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from the members? Senator Rome, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have a motion, and that is that despite the Republican executioner of all my bills in 2018 speaking for this one, I move to report.
Oh,
as amended.
Habib?
Do you have any idea the body count of my bills?
Senator Rome, that's not germane to this conversation.
Move to report as amended.
So move to report the substitute as amended. All righty. If the clerk would call the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you, Senator Bagby. Your bill has reported 15-0, and you have one more bill, right?
You want me to wait on the other one? 535?
I don't have a problem with you bringing it forward. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So that one also has an amendment.
Thank you. If you'd go ahead and tell us about your bill. Do you have an amendment? You do.
Yes, that one has an amendment.
Yes. Can we have a motion to move the amendment? Second. All in favor, vote yes. Aye. Any opposed? Please tell us about your bill.
And that amendment just makes sure that it's clear that the institution is paying the cost.
Can you tell?
And then I'm going to tell you about the bill.
Thank you.
All right. The bill simply expands the definition of school crossing zones to pick up those areas around institutions of higher education and gives said institutions the opportunity to decline posted school crossing zones or to set hours for the use of portable blinking tilt over or such signage. And so it's just expanding that school crossing to universities, and it will be up to the institution to pay that cost.
Thank you so much.
Or the locality they so choose.
Thank you. Do you have anyone here who is in support of your bill?
They do, but tell them to be brief.
Thank you.
Please, Madam Chair.
If there's
Senator
anyone
Bagby,
online
thank
that would
you.
like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
This will have to go to finance if it does report,
Yes.
just so everyone knows. And if
Yeah,
we could
it will have to go to finance to explain the amendment that we put on it. The amendment makes it so that there's no cost associated.
Thank you very much. If we could keep the comments very brief, I think that most people would
Good
be
afternoon,
grateful.
everyone. Bobby Vincent, Director of Public Works for the City of Richmond. I want to thank Senator Bagby for bringing this before you all. Here in the City of Richmond, we do have major colleges and universities where pedestrians have obviously been impacted by drivers. We're doing our best to do the 3 E's with regards to educating people, engineering, as well as enforcement of traffic issues within our city. So we certainly support this bill and hope that you all can as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So if you are here to speak to the bill, could you please stand and come to the podium now? Thank you.
Please tell us who
Madam
you
Chair,
are.
good afternoon. Matt Conrad for Virginia Commonwealth University. We're grateful to the patron and we support the bill.
Thank you so much. I just have a comment right now. We know that there was a tragic loss of life from someone in our own community, and I really appreciate you bringing this bill forward to try to prevent that from happening to anybody else here in Richmond specifically. Are there any comments, or do we have a motion? Senator Sturdivant has a comment, it looks like.
Just a question, clarification, Madam Chair.
Senator Sturdivant.
Senator Bagby. So I think current law allows for the speed cameras at elementary school zones, and so that I understand the bill, this will be expanding that to higher ed.
Yes,
Senator Bagby, yes.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Roan, did you have a?
I have a motion moved to report as amended and re-refer to finance.
Second. All in, if the clerk could call the roll.
Ayes 9, noes 5.
Thank you. The bill reports 9 yeas, 5 noes. Appreciate your effort on that. Senator Marsden, you have a bill, SB 452, and it will have to go to finance if as it moves forward, if it does. Senator Marsden, our chair emeritus, please go ahead and tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Senate Bill 452, which is deals with
independent automobile dealers, these are folks that are not franchise dealers represented by the Virginia Auto Dealers Association, but the independent auto dealers. And what this bill provides is that these independent dealers, after they get certified, they take a course, they take a test, and they're good to go. But they have to be recertified. And what this bill does is allow them to be recertified, not by having to take a shorter course and then the test, but if they can pass the test, just allow them to take the test. And there's a $50 fee, 48 of which would go to the department, the Department of Motor Vehicles, 48 would go to the, I believe the department gets to keep $2, and the dealer board gets the 48 for the test, is the way it would work. So basically, if you can pass the test, 4 hours is a lot out of someone's day and their business. And if they feel comfortable taking the test, they can take it as many times as they like, but they're going to have to pass it to get recertified and just not have to take the course. So fairly simple bill, and would ask that it be supported, and glad to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from the members, or are there people in the audience who are here to support or oppose the bill? Gonzi.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Gonzalo Ida with the Virginia Independent Automobile Dealers Association. We'd like to thank Senator Marsden for bringing back this exam out option for our dealers so that they can remain compliant and continue to serve and provide services to their community. So we strongly support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there anyone in the audience opposed to the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion?
Move to report.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Senator Marsden, your bill reports 15-0.
Thank you,
and it will
Madam
go
Chair.
to it will go to finance next.
Great.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
and
it.
And I would say I am very proud to report that I'm very proud of Mr. Aida, the director. He was my intern 20 years ago, and I'm just so proud that he's now leading this organization.
That is wonderful. Clerk, I think we might have missed our motion needed to say that it would go to finance. Do I have a motion to reconsider the vote? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Madam Chair, move to report and refer to finance.
Oh, okay.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. Ayes 15, no zero. Okay. Do I have a motion on the
Move to report and refer to finance.
Thank you. Second. Clerk, if you do the roll again.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. The bill reports 15-0. Thank you so much, Senator Marsden. Appreciate it very much. I believe we may be at our last bill of the day with Senator. Oh, no, we have two. Senator Diggs is still waiting too. Senator Rome, let's do yours first. Should be fairly quick, and then Senator Diggs.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members of the committee. SB 336 is a bill that would allow for the implementation of automated speed enforcement devices, or ASEs, to be placed at high-risk intersections where there has been a fatality since January 1st, 2014. This bill is derived from constituent service requests brought to me during the several pedestrian safety town halls that I have facilitated over the past few years. My constituents express their concerns with what they describe as frequent street racing, which then translates to reckless driving behavior during the day and ultimately puts pedestrians in danger. The frequent reckless behavior in combination with the tragic fatality that occurred in my district last July is why my constituents asked me to carry the bill. So basically, we've worked with advocacy groups. The legislation does not override the authority of localities within the Commonwealth. where ASCs are only permitted to be implemented within 750 feet of a school crossing zone or highway work zone. This would give localities the option, so it is not mandatory, of installing photo speed monitoring devices where there is a demonstrable concern for pedestrian safety as you're approaching an intersection where there has been a fatality since January 1st of 2014.
Thank you. Senator Rome, did you have anyone with you who wanted to testify in support of the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee. Wyatt Gordon, Virginia Conservation Network. We think this is a really smart, data-driven way to target enforcement to those places where we can prove that we've needed it and hopefully save lives going forward. Our entire network is in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Madam Chair, Mike Doyle, Northern Virginia Families for Safe Streets, which includes Fairfax County, Families for Safe Streets. Speed kills, speeds maimed. Fairfax County has just did a pilot program on speed cameras in the school districts where they're allowed, and it showed a 25% reduction in speed after they were installed, which translates to saving lives. And we strongly urge you to save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman, members of the committee. Brantley Tyndall, Virginia Bicycling Federation. I can say that this is the tool for bike and pedestrian safety that gets talked about the most. There's the most uniform support for this tool, and it also is very effective for car safety. So it works well, and we think that it'll be a very effective tool by our law enforcement officers who have a hard time staffing for this position as well. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sarah Taylor, City of Alexandria. We understand that there's not an appetite to just allow us to put these anywhere we want to in our communities. But this way, this reasonable expansion using data and targeting the most dangerous places in our community where we can put these and make a difference for safety in our communities, we really appreciate this thoughtful, reasonable, incremental expansion of this authority and hope you'll support it. Thank you.
Many thanks. Next speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mitchell Smiley. I'm with the Virginia Municipal League, and we support the Senator's bill and appreciate her for bringing it forward. Hope you support.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, James Hutzler, Virginia Association of Counties. We support the bill. Thank the Senator for bringing it forward.
And finally.
Madam Chair, Ramin Fadahi, Commonwealth's Attorney for the City of Norfolk. I was about to leave, and then I saw what the bill was. I'm a former auto fatality prosecutor. We have a chronic law enforcement officer shortage in Virginia. We need people to slow down. Speed cameras in Suffolk cut infractions by 2/3, while this being the equivalent on somebody's license of a parking ticket. I support. It will save lives.
Thank you so much. Are there members of the audience who are in opposition to the bill?
Madam Chair, there's one person that would like to speak. Scott Filling, please unmute and make sure your camera's on.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Senator Boysko. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir. We'd like you to turn your camera on if you can, please.
Yes, Senator Boysko, I have turned my camera on. I'm not sure why it's not displaying, but I don't want to be interrupted once I start speaking. Can I speak? I don't know why it's not showing or why I'm not seeing.
Yes, sir. Everybody seems to be having a problem with that today. Go ahead, please. We have a minute.
Thank you for your understanding, Senator Boysko. Thank you. My name is Scott Filling, a 23-year citizen of Fauquier County, and I support Senate Bill 336 to pass into law, and gratefully thank Senator Rome for submitting this bill. Current 2023 VDOT data shows speeding volume at 60 miles per hour to 85 miles per hour and higher in a 55 mile per hour zone on Route 17, Marshall to Warrenton, Virginia, is 4,927,000 vehicles. Police speeding citations issued for this section of Route 17 averages around 300 to 400 per year, and typically not written until the speeder reaches 74 miles per hour. DMV Treds data is indicating that we have a increasing fatality count that's really risen more than we've ever seen before. And police forces seem to be in significant reduction over the years, and that is supported by Secretary of Homeland Security and Public Safety, Mr. Terrence Cole, who stated this recently on January 12th, as well as Secretary of Transportation of Virginia, Mr. Shepard Miller, who also said we have a serious speeding problem. So I support this technology to assist to get the speeding under more serious control. Thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Senator Sturdivant, followed by Senator Marsden. Senator Sturdivant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two comments for the patron and
Senator Sturdivant.
Would appreciate the senator's thoughts. So one of the issues I have with the speed trap cameras, and I understand that the senator's bill is to put them at high-risk intersection where there's been a fatality, and so I understand the data-driven focus. What I worry about is the unintended consequence that it can perhaps unintentionally allow localities to not do the infrastructure improvements for these dangerous intersections and instead just put up the speed camera. And then the second piece of it is more of a fairness aspect where we would be, I know that these are already allowed in some jurisdictions, but haven't been on this committee before and haven't had a chance to vote on it before. But the concern is having, you get a ticket in the mail sometimes weeks or a month after the alleged infraction happened. It results never from an interaction with a human being or law enforcement. And so it puts the defendant in a very difficult situation to defend him or herself, as opposed to when you get a traffic citation and you go contest it in court, usually the police officer has to show that the radar gun was working properly. But if it's a speed trap camera, the average citizen, I don't know, would have the ability to identify if there's a miscalibration or malfunctioning equipment. So it's more of a fairness and ability to defend oneself that is a concern for me. And so I just wanted to put those comments to the senator for input.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Rome.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would tell the senator to address the first point about the infrastructure. The senator will also note, Madam Chair, that I have filed SJ19 this year, and what SJ19 does is it directs VDOT to conduct a innovative intersection design corridor study for Somerset Crossing Drive over in Gainesville, which is the reason that I'm carrying this by the request of my constituents who live there, including a widow who lost her husband in this exact corridor in July of last year. And so the reason we have put this forward is my constituents have asked me, Madam Chair, to do two things. One, what can we do in the immediate term to make sure that we are addressing and correcting the bad behavior happening in this corridor before we do the long-term thing, which is to actually fix the road design itself. And Madam Chair, I'll also tell the senator in this case that if you'd like to co-patron my bill for adding a lot more money into the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program so that we can expedite delivery of those infrastructure projects for our localities, I will gladly sign them on as either chief co, you name it. I would be delighted to have that support on this, because this speed camera part here, this is not a substitute for the infrastructure designs that we need to save lives. This is what we do in the immediate term to fix a problem before you have the corridor study, before you go through your either regional transportation authorities, smart scale, your 70-30 funds, VHSIP, RSTP, federal funds, you name it. Before we get there, we have to do something immediate. This is the immediate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rome. Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the patron.
Senator Marsden, go ahead.
I apologize. I've been unable to get up on my device here the actual wording of the bill, but you mentioned the date 2014, which is 10 years ago. So I would assume that the bill would need constant updating if your goal is to have it a death within the past 10 years. And if we put language in that said something to that effect in the previous 10 years. I think that might be a good technical amendment.
So actually, Madam Chair, the reason that we used 2014 instead of 10 years, because the original version I had drafted was 10 years. The problem was going to be that when you actually installed any of these cameras, Madam Chair, that once you get past that 10-year window, they would have to come down, right? And so you don't want to have jurisdictions that are kind of having to, go back in time and figure out like, okay, when did this one happen, this one happen? So the reason we selected 2014 in this case is, look, it is, and I'm going to just be blunt, it is an arbitrary number, but we had to have a number somewhere because otherwise you're going to go back into a long time where you've had an intersection that's been corrected, and the reason that we didn't want to give too broad of authority to localities to pretty much just put them up anywhere is to avoid the speed trap issue that was raised by the senator over there, for the purpose of saying we are trying to target this at high risk intersections where there have been fatalities, where we know we can save lives. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Marsden. Does that satisfy your concern?
Peculiar, but yes, yes, that satisfies it.
Okay. Senator Rome, I would just like to say I have had so many calls from the media about these bills, and my concerns were, I will associate the same concerns as Senator Sturdivant, that, wanted to make certain that you were not going in and putting it in an area that could be taken advantage of, that they were in high-risk areas, and I was very pleased to see that you laid that out in the bill. Does anyone have anything else to say, or are we ready to entertain a motion?
Second.
Okay, if the clerk would call the roll.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
All righty, Senator Rome, your bill reported 10-5. Very good. And now I do believe we are at the last bill of the. We are leaving this to Senator Diggs. I understand that you have amendments SB 198.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe there are some amendments.
Yes. Do I have a motion to pass the amendments? Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Senator Diggs, please tell us about your amendments and your bill.
Okay. The amendments change the number of vehicles that are required to activate this bill from 3 to 6. On line 404, it's striking evidence, and instead of providing evidence, you have to provide a certification. On line 405, again, the number 3 changed to 6. And line 408, the fee went from $50 to $200, and then there's a distribution matrix on how that money will be distributed. So the intent of this bill is to essentially expand the antique car program to a collector car program, because there are other people who are collecting more modern cars that don't meet the definition of antique vehicles, and we're looking for a way that a person would have, let's say, in this case, at least 6, but they have many more, and it's very difficult for them to keep up with the registrations and all that. They're driving these vehicles just 2 or 3 times a year to exercise the vehicle, keep the fluids going, and there are certainly lots of exclusions in this bill that you have to certify that you have other means of general transportation, and they will not be used for everyday driving, that you have to meet certain safety modifications, and various other types of requirements that we have worked with the state police and the DMV in an effort to make this bill work.
Thank you. Senator Diggs, I know you've worked on this hard with stakeholders. Are there questions from anyone? Do you have anybody here in support of your Oh, Senator Marsden, excuse me. Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize again, I can't pull up the exact wording on the bill, but it says occasional pleasure driving up to 250 miles from your home. I have a vehicle that would qualify me to use pretty much every day of the year, including coming to Richmond and back for session and what have you, with paying a one-time, I guess, registration fee. If I had, such a collector's car, it's pretty much an open invitation to drive it full-time without having to, come under other state requirements around registration and inspection and all of those things. It's pretty wide open.
Yes, sir. That was pulled out of the antique car.
For the chair.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman, for violating protocol. That was pulled out of the language of the antique vehicle section, and I certainly would have no objection to an amendment that would lower that criteria.
Senator.
And excuse me, Madam Chair, and there's also a thing that you cannot use it for general transportation. You can only use it for parades, and there's some language in there that excludes that.
Senator Marsden, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, Madam Chair, because anytime I got pulled over, I would be telling the police officer, oh, it's just for pleasure. I'm not really going anywhere, but, while I'm out for pleasure, I may have stopped at the store. It's just, if we could, fix that language so that it's to and from the events and that, but I would be more comfortable if they took the pleasure out of this, because I see people violating the antique car law all the time. And, this is a loophole you could, drive a truck through, an antique truck.
Madam Chair, may I answer the question?
Senator Diggs.
Certainly, I would be willing. This is going to be referred to Finance, and I think there is still a technical amendment that the state police and DMV are interested in about a safety standard that needs to be in there that came in the last minute, and we just did not have the time to get it. So I would certainly not be opposed to something that would satisfy your concerns.
Senator Diggs, I'm wondering if there's anybody in the audience who is in favor or is in opposition before we. Is there anybody from the state police who? Oh, everybody's a.
Madam Chair, Ron Maxey, Virginia State Police. State Police has no position on this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have questions.
Senator Marsden, would you ask your question again?
Thank you.
Raise that again.
My question, Ron, had been that, with this 250-mile pleasure driving, within 250 miles of your home, it would put your officers in a situation of accepting somebody's word that it was for pleasure purposes and what have you. So would that put your officers in a difficult situation as to whether to have to take someone's word for it?
Madam Chair, Senator Marsden, you're correct. It is very challenging unless we followed somebody around. It would be difficult to articulate that in court that they definitely had violated that.
Madam Chair, follow up.
Senator Marsden, thank you.
Thank you. And I would assume your officers have better things to do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator, sir, I also have a follow-up question because one of the, and I haven't been able to tell in the amendment that the license would only be on one side of the car, so you wouldn't have two licenses. Wasn't that part of the original bill that it would only have a license plate on one side of the car? Did you change that?
Madam Chair, I'd have to check. I did not see that amendment come through, and I haven't pulled it up. I know something was offered. I wasn't able to get it to pull up on my iPad so that I could read what the amendment was if that was changed. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Senator Dix. Do you remember if you were able to make that change?
The recollection of my discussion was it would be two plates.
Thank you.
Okay. Not 100% sure.
Senator Diggs, I'm a little bit concerned also just about the idea that someone could claim that they were driving on their way to the parade and actually just have these plates. Can you explain to us what sort of process a person would have to go through? I mean, if you say, you just mark a line and say, yes, this is just a collector's item. I just don't quite understand the difference between this and like an antique vehicle. I don't understand what the difference of that is.
My understanding, it is very similar to an antique vehicle with the same requirements as an antique vehicle. This just covers the case of there are newer cars out there that people are collecting as such, and we're looking for a process almost identical to antique cars, but with a different definition, and we're now calling it a collector car.
And Mr. Senator Diggs, would they have to go through the same process of inspection and safety requirements and emissions?
There's the same provisions in there as are required for an antique car. Am I correct?
So my understanding is that they would not be required to go through the same process, even if they were not an antique car.
Madam Chair, Ron Maxey. Antique car does have an exemption provided. This does not provide an exemption to the safety motor vehicle requirement, so this would have to get a safety inspection.
Thank you for clarifying that. That was not clear to me
I think that was
originally.
one of the details we had worked out and I wasn't clear on, so thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you so much. Is there any other question from any other member? Do we have a motion before us? Okay. Are you all ready to vote? Already. If the clerk would call the roll.
Senator.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Ayes 9, noes 5, abstentions 1.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Senator Diggs, your bill passed with 9 votes, 1 no, and 1 abstention. Thank you so much. Seeing no more before us, the committee will rise.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.